There is a moment fear loves. It is not always the moment something bad is happening. Sometimes it is the moment something new is opening. A door, a decision, a conversation, a calling, a life you prayed for, now standing right in front of you. And suddenly your body pulls back. Your chest tightens, your breath changes, your mind starts gathering evidence. What if this goes wrong? What if I'm not ready? What if I start and can't finish? What if people see me try and then see me fall? And for a moment, doing nothing feels safer than becoming. That is the confusing thing about fear. Sometimes fear shows up because something is dangerous. And sometimes fear shows up because something is unfamiliar. So what if fear is not always the enemy to defeat? What if fear is a signal? And what if learning how to read that signal could change the way we grow? Welcome to Becoming with Adeola Azaria. This is a space for people who are becoming, not fearless, not reckless, but honest about what it actually takes to grow. Here we don't shame fear, we don't glorify it either. We examine it. Today we're talking about fear, not as a weakness, not as a personality flaw, but as information. Adeola, let's talk. Culture has a very limited script for fear. On one side, you have the warriors. Crush fear. Be fearless. Don't let fear stop you. Courage is doing it afraid. And on the other side, you have the avoiders. The people who dress avoidance up as discernment, who call paralysis patience, who say, I'm waiting for the right time. Every single year for 5 years in a row. Now, both sides are responding to fear. Neither side is actually listening to it. And that distinction matters enormously because not all fear is the same. There's the fear that says something here is genuinely dangerous. There's the fear that says this reminds me of something that hurt me before. There's the fear that says you're growing beyond what has been familiar, and unfamiliar feels unsafe before it feels possible. There's the fear that is old pain, speaking into new circumstances. There's the fear that is pride, dressed up in caution, refusing to start something it cannot guarantee to finish perfectly. And there's the fear that is your nervous system doing its job, scanning, assessing, sending signals before you have had the chance to interpret them. So if you silence all fear, you may ignore wisdom. But if you obey all fear, you may abandon your future. Wisdom is knowing the difference. And wisdom is not built on ignoring fear. It is built on asking better questions of it. I want to be honest with you. There was a season in my life where fear arrived very quietly, not as panic, not as a breakdown, just as resistance, a wait before starting, a strange reluctance towards something I genuinely wanted, a hesitation I could not quite explain. And my first response was to shame it. I told myself I was overthinking. I told myself I needed to push harder. I told myself that people who were really called didn't feel this way. Because when you're used to surviving, you can start to believe that hesitation is always weakness, that a pause is always a problem, that fear is the enemy, that fear is always the enemy. So I pushed, and yes, I moved forward. But I moved forward missing information I needed. I moved forward without the preparation the fear was actually asking for. I moved forward and got there, then paid for the gaps later. It took time for me to understand. The fear was not telling me not to go. The fear was telling me how to go. It was asking, have you prepared properly? Do you have support in place? Are you running towards this or running from something else? Is this decision coming from clarity or from pressure? And those are not small questions. Those are the questions that determine whether you arrive whole or arrive depleted. Fear was not the locked gate I kept trying to force open. It was the voice asking if I had the right key. And the difference between those two things changed how I move today. This is a part of the episode where I want to bring in something that genuinely changed how I see fear: neuroplasticity. And stay with me because this is not a science lecture. This is one of the most hopeful things about being human. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire itself, to form new connections, to change its patterns, to rebuild the pathways through which you think, feel, and respond. Your brain is not fixed, it is living tissue, responding to experience, attention, practice, and repetition. And that matters because much of what we call fear is not only about what is in front of us, it is about what is already inside us. When fear fires, the brain alarm system starts scanning. Does this look like something we've encountered before? If it looks like the last time you failed, or the last time you were embarrassed, or the last time you tried and got odds, the alarm sounds. Not always because the present is dangerous, sometimes because the present is familiar. It is the past trying to protect you from a future it has already judged too quickly. But here's the beautiful part. You can change that. Not by pretending fear is gone, but by building new evidence. Every time you do the thing you were afraid of and survive it, every time you take the step and realize your worst case scenario did not happen, every time you act with preparation, support, and care, you're teaching your brain something new. You're saying to your nervous system, this is safe enough. We've been here. We know how to move here. Update the file. Over time, the alarm recalibrates. Fear may still speak, but it stops shouting, its grip loosens, and you begin to respond from the version of you that is learning, not only the version of you that was hurt. That is neuroplasticity in real life. Your brain is always listening to the story your action tells it. Tell it a new one. Let's look at two people who have stood at the edge of human performance. Now, not to idolize them, but to understand what fear looks like at the highest level. Think about Serena Williams. The power, the presence, the serve, the dominance. 23 Grand Slam titles, a career that changed tennis forever. And yet, even Serena had to meet fear in a completely new form. After giving birth to a daughter, she went through serious health complications and then faced the long road back, not just to tennis, but to herself. Because returning after transformation is not the same as returning after a break. Her body had changed, her life had changed, her identity had expanded, and still the world expected the legend. Imagine that kind of pressure to step back onto a court where people remember your greatness before they understand your recovery. Fear of not being the same, fear of the body not responding, fear of being judged publicly while privately rebuilding. But Serena did something powerful. She didn't pretend the fear wasn't there. She adjusted. She trained. She listened to her body. She rebuilt confidence point by point, match by match, breath by breath. Even return to the court became new evidence. We can do this. Even changed, even after, even now. That is not fearlessness. That is a woman teaching her body and brain a new story after transformation. Fear did not erase her greatness. It refined the way she returned to it. And then there's Eliud Kipchoge. If Serena is thunder, Kipchoge is sunrise. Quiet, steady, inevitable. One of the greatest marathon runners in history. The first human being to run a marathon distance in under 2 hours under controlled conditions. 1 hour, 59 minutes, 40 seconds. Now think about what a marathon asks of a body and mind. It asks you to keep moving. Even every signal in your body eventually begins to suggest stopping. At some point, the body says, this hurts. This is too much. The finish line is too far. Let's stop. That is fear too. Not dramatic fear. The quiet, persistent fear of sustained discomfort. And Kipchoge does not fight it with noise. He answers it with reading, preparation, discipline, consistency, breath, step, breath, step. The kind of evidence built long before the race begins. So when fear speaks, his body has another memory available. We know this place. We have trained here. We know how to breathe here. We know how to keep moving here. That is neuroplasticity made physical. Not one dramatic act of bravery, but repeated evidence laid down over time. And the lesson for us is this: you don't have to wait until you're not afraid. You have to build enough evidence that fear starts losing its arguments. Every consistent step, every honest conversation, every moment you show up when it is uncomfortable, you're not just building courage, you're rewiring the story your brain tells about who you are. Both Serena and Kipchoge shows us this. Fear does not disqualify you from excellence. Handled wisely, it can actually refine you. So how do you sit with fear without obeying it blindly or silencing it recklessly? You ask better questions. 4 of them, simple but not easy. 1, what am I actually afraid of? Not the surface answer, the real one. I'm afraid it won't work. Maybe the surface answer. I'm afraid that if it doesn't work, it means I'm not enough. That is the real one. Get to the real one, because the real one is what you need to address. 2, is this fear coming from the present or the past? Is what you're facing actually dangerous? Or does it simply look like something that hurt you before? Your brain may treat them the same. You have to make the distinction consciously. What would preparation look like here? Not certainty. Preparation. What do you need to learn? Who do you need around you? What structure would make this safer? What step is small enough to be honest, but real enough to build new evidence? 4, am I avoiding or am I discerning? This is the hardest one, because avoidance and discernment can feel almost identical from the inside. Both can sound wise, both can say not yet. So ask yourself, if I had the support, the preparation, and the structure I needed, would I still say no? If yes, that may be genuine discernment. If no, that may be fear wearing a very convincing mask. Ask honestly, then move wisely. Okay, come with me. We're stepping into the becoming kitchen. And if this is your first time here, welcome. The becoming kitchen is where we take the lesson and make it something you can actually hold. Because the mind is brilliant, but the mind can understand something long before the body believes it. So we bring the lesson into the body, into smell, into texture, into eat, into taste, into the slow patience of preparation. This is where truth leaves the mind and enters somewhere deeper. Today we're making something fear could never produce in a hurry: a steadying stew. The kind of meal you make before a long journey. The kind that warms you from the inside out. The kind that doesn't shout but settles. So come in, wash your hands, lay down the urgency at the door, turn the flame low. We're not running from fear today. We're feeding courage properly. Picture the kitchen. Early morning. Soft light just beginning to enter the room. A wooden chopping board on the counter. Heavy, one steady. Fresh ingredients laid out carefully. Onions, garlic, ginger, tomatoes, peppers, herbs rinsed and resting in a small bowl. A sharp knife waits on the board. And on the stove, a heavy pot. The kind that has survived many fires and still knows how to hold it. You turn the flame up. Turn the flame on, low, not high, because fear already brings enough heat. We are here to transform it, not intensify it. Our ingredients: 1 honest fear, washed, named, placed on the board. 2 generous cups of preparation, 1 tablespoon of self-awareness, a handful of perspective, 1 cup of support, because fear grows loudest in isolation, a spoonful of faith, not denial, but grounded trusts. Fresh courage added near the end, and grace to taste. Our utensils: a sharp knife for clarity, a wooden spoon for steady thinking, a heavy pot for emotional resilience, the low flame for regulation, a lid for boundaries, because not every fear needs an audience while it is still cooking. How do we do this? We first place the fear on the chopping board. Not tomorrow, today. Look at it honestly. What is its name? Fear of failure? Fear of visibility? Fear of success and everything it demands? Fear of starting again? Fear of being judged, fear of the door you prayed for and now cannot seem to walk through. Name it, because unnamed fear is fog, but named fear becomes an ingredient, and ingredients can be worked with. Now pick up the knife of clarity. Begin to chop. Begin to chop. No, not violently, precisely. Cut the fear into questions. What exactly am I afraid of? What evidence do I actually have? Is this feeling coming from the present or from the past? What would preparation remove from this fear? What would support change? What part of this is wisdom? And what part is an old wound speaking? Chop slowly. You're not attacking the fear. You're making it small enough to cook. Place the pieces gently into the heavy pot. Now, point preparation. Generously, research, planning, practice, rest, mentorship, support structures, honest assessments. Let preparation settle over fear, like the base of a stew. Now, had self awareness as he eats, something begins to shift. Self awareness asks, where did this fear come from? Sometimes the answer changes everything. Sometimes the fear you carry about this new thing is actually old fear from an old wound that has nothing to do with today. And when you can see that, when you can say, this alarm is firing because of what happened before, not because of what is happening now, the fear begins to lose its grip. This is neuroplasticity in the kitchen. This is a new pathway forming every time you refuse to let the old story write the new chapter. Stir gently. Now, heart support. Do not skip these ingredients. Some of us have been trying to cook courage alone in a locked kitchen and wondering why everything keeps burning. Pour in the person who tells you the truth kindly. Pour in the mentor who has walked the road. Pour in the community that knows your name. Pour in professional help if you need it. Fear becomes smaller in good company, not because other people erase it, but because the nervous system starts recalibrating in the presence of safety. Your brain starts filing new evidence. We're not alone here. The threat is smaller than we thought. Update the file. Now add faith. Not faith that denies fear. Faith that says, I see the unknown. I acknowledge the risk. I have prepared what I can, and I believe I can be held through what I cannot control. Put the lid on. Let it simmer. Low it. Steady it. Patience it. Do not keep lifting the lid every 2 minutes. Let the process work. Because in a well-made stew and in a well-tended mind, fear begins to change texture. What started sharp becomes understandable. What felt like a verdict becomes a conversation. What looked like a wall begins to reveal itself as a threshold. You cannot rush this, but you do not have to. Stew always tells you when it is ready. Now, before you act, this is the taste test. Before you act, decide, launch, start, or step forward. Take one slow spoonful. If it tastes rushed, it needs more time. If it tastes chaotic, add self awareness. If it tastes lonely, add support. If it tastes bitter, add perspective. If it tastes flat, add honesty. But if it tastes grounded, warm from the inside, clear in direction, held without being forced, if it tastes like I am still afraid, but I am prepared and I'm not alone, it is ready. That is what fear handled wisely produces. Not the absence of uncertainty, just enough steadiness to take the next honest step. And sometimes that is exactly, fear is not always a sign to stop. Sometimes fear is wisdom, asking you to pay attention. And the brain that learns to ask better questions of fear is the brain that builds a better life. Affirmation for this week: I do not need to be fearless to move forward. I can listen to fear without obeying it blindly. I can prepare. I can ask better questions. I can build new evidence. My brain is not fixed. My story is not fixed. I am still becoming. Before you go, think about the fear you've been calling a wall. What if it is not a wall? What if it is signal? What if it is not saying stop forever, but asking, are you prepared enough to step forward wisely? You are not weak because fear showed up. You are human and you're not stuck because fear speaks loudly. Your brain can learn new pathways. Your body can learn new safety. Your life can learn new movements. So this week, do not just fight the fear. Do not just obey it either. Sit with it. Name it. Question it. Prepare around it. Then take one honest step that gives your brain new evidence. Just one step. That is how becoming happens. Not by becoming fearless overnight, but by becoming faithful with the next step. If this episode found you standing outside a door, hand on the handle, heart loud, breath unsteady, this is your reminder. The fear may be real, but so is the capacity being built in you. And maybe the door is not the proof that you're unready. And maybe the door is where your brain, your body, and your becoming learn what is possible next. Thank you for being here. Until next time, keep becoming.